Hello, welcome back. I'm James Berry. I'm one of the technical managers at the Property Care Association. You join me today at the Property Care Association Practical Training Facility in Huntingdon. So quite a unique facility which we use to train for apprentice level and technician level, but it also gives us a chance to do some really interesting and cool stuff. So some of you may have seen sort of an introductory video to our test wall, and we're back here today looking at that again. So you will see it's developed quite a bit since the last time we looked at this. It's now got sort of two completely painted walls with a standard emulsion and then a chalk paint as well. We've also got skirting fixed and that's painted as well. So just a bit of a brief description of what this is again. So essentially we've got a 9-inch masonry wall using a 6-in-1 lime mortar mix, and we've got sort of a bunded area with a salt pollution in it. And what you can obviously see is we've already got some computer rising that wall, fairly obvious as well. You've got some quite heavy salting through there as well. So we've got this really cool wall. It allows us an opportunity to do some testing and some experiments, and that's why we're here today. So this is going to be our first in-depth video where we're doing a bit more focus. Like I said, we've done the intro, now we're really getting into the nitty-gritty. So today's video, we're going to look at moisture meters. Every surveyor is pretty much armed with one, and this is why we think it's a good place to start. And we're going to be looking at an array of models and comparing and contrast them on our test wall. So we've got a complete array of different units to look at. We're going to be going from old to new, not necessarily in that order, but we've got some old stuff, we've got some new stuff, we've got some really high-end stuff, and we've got some sort of more budget models as well. So we're going to be looking how they compare. We've also got some that work on with the ping function, and then we've got some that are looking at the scanner sort of pads on the back. So we're going to be looking how they compare and contrast as well. We know that obviously limitations of each of those, but we're going into a bit more detail, and hopefully once we've got our results we'll be able to explain that in a bit more detail as well, assuming we get the results we want to, of course. What we'll look to do is we'll try and get some results up there so you can sort of see a table as to how they all compare and the different readings, and see, you know, we're going to be as completely honest and transparent as we can. So what we get, we're going to hopefully show you, and you can see how they compare and contrast. So I'll look at some of these meters in a bit more detail now. So we're going to start with probably our earliest model that we're going to try and test, a Protometer SurveyMaster. So if you recognise this, you're probably showing your age as well. But older model, very with the pins only, very early, I think from sort of early 80s, well before my time, of course. Something a little bit more modern is a Protometer Mini, again with a pin function, and we'll be looking how that compares as well. This is from early 90s, something like, I think 91. Some of the more modern ones, again, Protometer. This isn't a plug for Protometer, but this is just one of the very, you know, it's probably one of the more common models or bigger brands on the market, so that's just naturally how we managed to pick up a bit of an archive of Protometers. So we've got a SurveyMaster SM, so quite a familiar one for, I'm sure most of you might even still have this model and still using it, with pins and scanner pads as well. One that's a bit more unusual, this is an ETI moisture meter. It sort of has an attachment on there with pins, so not too dissimilar to some of the ones we'll be looking at the moment. Not overly expensive, but you know, we'll have a look and see how it compares. This is sort of towards the higher end. This is a very good model. It has sort of additional functions as well, so relative humidity and things like that. Obviously not going to look at that so much today, but it's on there as well, and surface monitor. And the same with the E-Tech as well, not too dissimilar to the model we've just looked at, but you know, even from the casing you can see look very, very similar. But how do they compare in real life? The anomaly in the group is probably this one. This is the Trotec, I think it's called a T610. And this works off a slightly different technology. This is a microwave meter, It's not ideally set up for what we're going to do today, but we'll have a go with it, we'll have a look, we'll see how it compares, contrasts, and sort of see how the readings differ, that sort of thing. So just to give a bit of background as to what we're going to do today in our experiment. So we've got a test rule. What we're going to try and do is take readings from various heights up the wall. So 3 locations for each of the meters. We're going to try and take one from the skirting, one sort of just above that level from the mason, the plaster level, and then sort of one towards the top middle of the wall. I'd say we'll plot the results up there so you can see it as well. So we'll have sort of a skirting, height A, height B, and we'll record that. So you'll now be able to see what we've done is we've marked out the wall. Very conveniently above the floorboard level it's around 600 mil. So we put markers every 200 mil, and what we'll try and do is make sure that all of the readings that we take are in the same area, and then we can compare and contrast. So one from skirting, perhaps one from section B, or one from section C, then one from section A, and then we'll plot them for you. So a lot of the meters we've used so far have only got sort of the pins, so most of the readings that we've recorded so far just on that. Some of the more modern ones we're going to start looking at, such as the Survey Master SM, have the scanner and the pad, so we'll be taking 2 lots of readings from these, from each of the various heights. So you'll see us changing slightly tack, so we'll be not only taking the pins, we'll be using the other facilities as well. So this is one of our more modern moisture meters. This is the ETI Moisture Meter 7000. It again has the pins. There's various settings on this. We're going to use it on the plaster mode while we do the plaster, and then we'll adapt accordingly for the skirting board when we get there. So this one's the Trotec. This is our most modern acquisition. We have to let it calibrate for a little while, hold down the bottom. In theory, you're meant to use this up in an upright position. It does require a monolithic structure, so you need the depth of the substrate to be around 200 thick, which we've got around there. So we'll see how we get on. So we've taken all our readings from our wall, as you'd expect, or as we were kind of expecting. There is a bit of a array in the results, and that's for reasons we'll start going into. You'll notice, unfortunately, as is the joy of working some of the old equipment, you don't always get it to work perfectly. So unfortunately, some of the moisture meters haven't worked entirely correctly. But, that's all part of the experiments, and goes to show, we are doing this properly and live, and we're not trying to pull up punches or anything like that, or hide anything from you. One of the moisture meters, unfortunately, on its scan mode just didn't work. On its pin mode, sorry, but there we are. So we've got our wall, and you can see we've got varying sort of results up the wall, and I'm sure it's not going to be any great surprise to any of you really. Moisture meters are virtually all calibrated to timber, which is why for our results that we've got from the skirting board, there is a great amount of flexibility. They are all very, very similar. The results we got from there is very, very, I think we're within a few percent of each other, which was entirely what we're expecting. I was expecting slightly higher reading, but unfortunately I think where the skirting has got a bit where it's sort of bowed, perhaps, and reading aren't quite as high as what I was anticipating. Here's what it is. It's shown us that actually, as far as all those moisture meters go, when working in timber, they all give us a reasonably accurate sort of scale. They're all sort of slightly elevated, there was one that sort of, or 2 that sort of peaked around 20, which is where we would start getting sort of a bit concerned. but the rest was certainly sort of quite elevated anyway. And you know, on a ground floor joist would probably give you a bit of cause for concern, and probably doing a bit more investigation and sort of trying to poke about there. But they're all reasonably, you know, in line, fairly accurate, and that's kind of, thankfully, what we're expecting. The readings that we've got for the rest of the wall obviously vary greatly, and that is partly because they all work on very, very different scales. We've got sort of some that go up sort of 99.9s to some that had sort of no scale and then sort of a light indicator. So we've got a huge amount of sort of varying scales on there. And that's kind of the point, and this is this is where we're expecting to end up on this video. Any moisture meter is only indicative of a high reading will tell you that there's something to investigate. We knew there was something to investigate. You can see the dampness. So actually the readings we've got are no great surprise. It's telling us it's got a wet wall. And actually the figures that they quoted on the masonry itself, the plaster, are almost meaningless. All it's telling us is we've got a problem, we need to investigate, we need to do some more, you know, other testing, and that kind of leads us on to the other series of videos that we're going to be doing anyway. So this is our first one. We're going to be doing some more. We're going to be doing some more interesting and quirky stuff. This was sort of an initial taster, as it were, and it has sort of got us to what we're expecting to get. Moisture meters are only as good as the person that wields them. You shouldn't be looking at sort of single readings in isolation. You should be looking at sort of indicative profiles. So unfortunately, the section of wall we've got here is quite small. You know, we're only going up to 600 from sort of the floorboards, and you've probably only got an extra 200 mil below that. Another important consideration with regards to the moisture meters, and not only, as I say, it's the profiling that matters and the distribution of the readings. So if you're getting a negligible reading on a moisture meter, then there probably isn't a problem. If you get an elevated reading, then it's probably a cause for more investigation. That's what they're used for. That's all you know, they're there to give you an indication of whether there might be a problem, you know, and you should be using it in conjunction with your visual evidence and things like that. The other thing that they're really limited to as well is they cannot tell you where that water is coming from, if it is water that's causing it, of course. So it could be that, you know, it could be condensation, it could be capillary rising water, you know, rising down, or it could be rainwater coming through the structure. All it's going to tell you is whether there is sort of resistance through the meter. So it will give you a beep or, you know, an elevated reading, but it won't tell you where that moisture, that reading is, or what the cause of it is. That's where the knowledge of the surveyor is coming. That's where it's part of your survey. This is where you should be looking, you know, for the external defects, looking for the presence of damp-proof courses, what the type of damp-proof course is, has it been compromised. So that concludes this video. I hope you've really enjoyed it. Being the first of what we're hoping is going to be a series of videos, this one looking at moisture meters. We'll probably do a few more. The next one we're aiming to look at is going to be looking at sampling of the wall. We'll perhaps do some dowels, we'll do some calcium carbide tests. So we're hoping that's going to be with you in a couple of weeks' time. I hope to see you then.